folks, I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily TA wrap. Well, we take a look at these markets, and we do it from a neoclassical perspective and ask ourselves what happened today. And does it tell us anything about tomorrow? I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of what is my lovely and beautiful Rocky Mountains. Moved up here when I was a kid, folks. Always wanted to come to Colorado. Beautiful place. Very beautiful place. Great weather. Blue skies. It's a beautiful thing. What do we have in these markets today? Well, it's pretty much same old thing. All right. We get to the top. We hang. We got a little bit more range today than we did yesterday, but not all that much. This market really is struggling to do up or down. We've been looking for clues to try to give us an indication of what's next. There are a couple more clues tonight. We'll look at those. There's a couple of areas that actually look very interesting. I want to talk a little bit about gold and silver. I want to talk about the housing. And I want to take your questions and answer them. I got a couple emailed to me here. Of course, you can text me if you want, 303-912-9110 if you want to text, and I'll take those as well. So let's take a look at the ending numbers. Well, there's really not much to look at. Down 0.25% were the big losers. Remember, we've had listed issues outperforming the OTC. Well, today it flipped around a little bit, although we're not talking large percentages here. You know, it's about 1/3%. So we're down 0.25% here, up a little bit on the NDX and the NASDAQ. Outside of that, gold got hit pretty hard, went down and tested a low. Dollar was up slightly, pretty flat. Euro got a little bit of a bounce today, but it looked like it failed. We'll look at that chart and see what it looks like. Oil got hammered, down almost, I think it was down about $2. It looks like we're slightly higher after hours. And that was pretty much it. So let's go over and look at these indexes, and let me try to go over what I did see today. Now, remember, we've been focusing on the idea that you have to simply defer to the trend if you don't see any clear indication of what's next, right? And the trend has been up. And so that's kind of the way I've been looking at this. I've been looking at it that way for quite a while. This market is pretty much going sideways for a month now, right? I mean, we went over the swing point high back here on October 17th. We're November 12th, so it's almost a month now. You get over the highs, you don't come back to test them, and you keep drifting away. Now, we had the takeaway. We actually had the breakdown bar last week on Thursday, and then the takeaway bar on Friday put us back up at the highs. Monday, Tuesday, we're just hanging. Really nothing there to give us any kind of indication. If we look at the Dow's pretty much doing the same thing. Really no difference here, although the Dow, of course, we know was the weakest of the groups. It finally made a high, waited until November 6th when everything else had broken out much earlier. And if we're talking about breaking out, I mean, here's a breakout, for example, over the highs on October 16th, so a full 6 weeks ahead of the Dow. The breakout here, this is the NASDAQ composite, took us up to a new level, right? Then we hit the breakdown bar, then we come back. It's not a takeaway bar, though. Volume disappears, right? We've had absolutely no volume now for, oh, goodness. Well, we've had some, but certainly the last 3 days we've had no volume down in here, right? It's just nothing there. That move down had a little volume on it, and then the move back up, those 3 days really has nothing on it. Now that's typical, right? You're going to get, on a down move, you're going to get more volume. So what you try to do is you want to try to measure what it's coming back into. 19.7, you came into it with 23, so you hit it with more volume. That says you probably want to try to come back down there, but so far hasn't done it. But what it has done is when it came back up, and we've looked at it here and we've looked at it on the NDX too, is when it came back up, you know, there's a little ledge there, and it's hanging right up there at that ledge, and it can't get over it, it can't get under it. If it gets over it, it's going to go test the highs, and if that happens, you're going to see the SPX and the Dow Jones most likely break out. So far it hasn't happened. The NDX looks pretty much the same, not really any difference there, except for the, you know, here, as we've talked about, the ledge on the NDX is actually well defined. You know, it goes back to this bar way over here, pretty much straight across, and you're hanging right up underneath it, right? You can't get back above it. If you get above it and you get back above this bar, right, then you got to expect the swing point high is going to be attacked. But so far, it hasn't been able to do that. Now the Russell, you know, for so long, the Russell has been the clearest signals that have been given to us. And I thought when we got that clear signal down on Thursday that we'd probably get a little bounce and then we'd get some follow through. That was an ABCD structure down. That ABCD structure gave us, you know, if we look at the measurement, that ABCD structure off the top takes us down, we come back up, and that was a completion. It was a completion of the ABCD down. We got the bounce as expected, but we haven't been able to come back down, right? There's no volume up here, but you know, so far it just hasn't mattered. It's just hanging. What's it doing? It's doing the same thing. It's hanging under the ledge, and in this ledge, in this particular case, the ledge here is that high, and that high was 1103.77. So we haven't been able to get over it. We haven't even tested it. We went to 2, we went to 1, we still haven't got over it. That's the test here. Those are still on the indexes. Those are still the things to watch. If they can get over this ledge, right, they're going to go back and attack the highs, or at least attempt to. If they can't get over the ledge, right, so far we still have divergence. If they can't get over the ledge, well, there's the potential that we come back down. But at this juncture, that hasn't happened. And so what we've been trying to do is look elsewhere to ask ourselves, okay, is there something else out there that will give us a clue? So let's pop through the sectors again and see what these guys look like. All right, so the IYT was actually the strongest sector today, had a little volume pickup. This looks like it wants to test that high, 127.61. There's really no juice here, but it's climbing back up there again. I saw one of the railroads on our trading signals today. Trading signals, of course, is the culmination of the work I did here in the book, you know, Trend Trade Setups. That book actually tries to lay out the highest probability scenario that you can find. What are the common characteristics of those trades which would give us a high probability trade? And one of the railroads was on there. That's the IYT. That particular railroad and some of the others in that group still look very strong and still are giving good signals even at this late date. If we move over to the SMH was stronger today. We can see there was no volume on it though. This is just excuse me, this is just hanging here. And actually, you know, I hadn't really looked at it before, but you really have, I mean, maybe I've mentioned it before, but you really have like two quadrants, if you will. I'd probably take those two. They're about even. I like them when they're about even spaced, you know. I don't know how I keep getting that bar in there, but that even spacing is nice. It comes down, it tests 20-point low. It actually doesn't have any volume when it gets there. Now you're crawling back up again. This is still just in a big range up here, and that range is from September, so we're talking about 2 months on this particular sector. Today, no real clue here either. XLB was trying to get strong, went to the top, couldn't get over it. There's no volume. That one's still hanging. That one's not going to tell us anything. Let's see what the XLE did. Yeah, so now the XLE is a little different story, and it's actually starting to tell us something finally. You know, it's like waiting on little clues and not knowing if you're going to get them or not. The clues here have to do with the way we've been coming down. You can see the volume pick up. We go back up, we test the top, we really have nothing as we go back up, right? Then as we come down again on this particular bar, you can see a little volume escalation comparatively. Go back up, test again, right? Then Thursday we come down again and the volume really expanded on Thursday. Then you got the takeaway bar. And then yesterday you actually got the test in the doji, which said we could reverse, and in fact we did reverse. We didn't get any escalation in volume here, but what we did get is we got that test with a doji, and now we came off of that. That looks like you're going to come back to test that low again. So now we've got something we can actually watch, right? Because we're watching for something to tell us which way this market's going to break. Energy, financials, those are the two largest sectors, along with technology, the three largest sectors in the S&P 500. This little ledge here with the volume escalation like it has, if it can get under it, right, there's really nothing here to support it. Right, you got nothing here. This has been doing a retest regen off this high, but it's been hitting it with more volume as we've talked about. Now that you're trying to come back down again, and with oil, which we'll look at later, trying to weaken, that puts this back in play and potentially gets a break. If it gets a break, I don't see any support until you get back into this level. It looks like back down here. That's quite a ways down. That would make it pretty hard if you get that break for the S&P to hold up there. So that's the oil. So the oil is finally giving us a little signal. The other one that may be giving a signal, it's not clear yet, is the XLF. Remember, the XLF went up, did the doji. That high, 2086, you close at 2087, so you're actually over it. But now you're coming back down again. And so on the XLF, if we're looking for clues, where we want to look here is we're going to look at that range right there. Right? You're using the bottom of this bar and you're using these lows. That area, all this area down in here, that's the area that if it breaks, right, again, the same sort of thing. You've been already doing the retest regen off this high. You hit it with decent volume, not enough. You go all the way back up to the top. Now you're trying to come down again. Conversely, if it flips around and actually takes out the highs, it's extremely bullish for the market, because this thing can carry the market. But if it doesn't, it's not a disaster, but it definitely would want to come back into this little range right here. So this is the other one to watch. XLE, XLF, two big sectors. XLE is giving a clearer signal that it wants to try to break back, test the low again. XLF may in fact be following it down there. Industrial still hanging, volume's okay. I don't really see anything there. Let's see if the technology did anything today. So if we look at the tech sector and the XLK, no, that one's just hanging at the top too. Still nothing, no volume. XLP really just consolidating as well. XLU, that's really nothing there. So that's the smallest sector waiting inside the S&P. XLV now, decent size weighting, still hanging at the highs, nothing different there. I don't see any tells on that. So really it's the XLE, XLF. Those look to be the ones to continue to watch. Now the discretionary would be interesting if it breaks, but it's got a swing point high to test. It still hasn't tested 61.75. Yeah, it's still got to test it. So, here it's a retest regen situation, off this swing point high still, if it ever gets back down there. Just like everything else. We've got so many of these things that want to do a retest regen, just never have. So a couple of small clues in the bears' favor. The biggest one being the XLE, potentially the XLF. We may see, I would think, tomorrow maybe a little bit of pressure, a little bit additional pressure as a result of that. Tomorrow we got Bernanke speaking. The day after now they have Yellen scheduled on the Hill in front of the Senate to do some testimonies. So that will be the first time, because when you're leading up to these nominations, you don't say a word. And so she's going to be forced to talk now. We'll get to see what she has to say. They're gonna talk to her about QE. So that will be a story in and of itself. We'll have to see how that one works out. So, as I've said before, if they're going to break this thing down and get a retrace out of it finally, I really think this is the week. You're running out of time because pretty soon you're going to be into the holiday season, and those just tend to gravitate in the direction of whatever the trend is, and clearly the trend this year has been up. Let's go over and look at the dollar right quick. So now the dollar still looks like it's going to try to pull back a little bit. It went up, it tested here. That test brought it up into this bar, right? So big volume over there. You come into it with big volume as well, right? You test into it, but you close underneath it. Now you're hanging for 2 days. It still looks like this is the area it's going to try to come back to. That would probably be the buy if in fact it does. If I go look at the FXE, I believe the FXE is doing the same sort of thing, just the opposite direction. And it's trying to get up to that same sort of area that we see here, right? It's just the opposite side of it. It's trying to get up there. Weak, yeah. Today it tested into this high, right? Into that high. Couldn't get over it. Little doji looking thing. This could come back tomorrow. That's kind of a test failure today, although the UUP, it's not clear that it's ready to make its run yet. If we go look at gold and silver, now these to me were the story today. And what I'm talking about here is, if we look at gold itself, you've got a low out here at 21.85. Okay, at 21.85, that low it was trying to get to today, right? And it got within, it got within very close of it here. Yeah, it got underneath it actually. So 7.6, less than half the volume, right? So you go under it after a big move down, and I think we actually have an ABCD structure on the way down here. So at top is 131.44, 131, so that's 540. Off of this takes you to 22, about 22, and that's where we are, right? So that ABCD structure there, and I'll draw it out. This structure from here to there, little bounce to there, that's the ABCD structure just played out and finished. That structure, right, is done. You test the lows, you have less volume. Folks, I suspect this thing is going to try to flip around. Now what's really interesting, and we'll look at them in a minute, is a bunch of the gold stocks, there's a number of them, that haven't participated all the way back down like this. In other words, we're testing lows here. You can go look at, and I can just probably throw up some, here, let's just look at a couple off the top of the head. I haven't looked at this chart in a while. AVX, it's not at the lows. Newmont may be at the lows. Let's see what Newmont looks like, because they had had a bad earnings. No, they're not even at the lows. So a lot of your big cap stocks in the gold sector simply aren't making new lows. If you look at the GDX itself, which is the sector of the golds, they're also not making new lows. GDXJ, now the small caps, actually did go just like the gold stocks went down and tried to break. Remember, it hit with volume about 3 days ago, 2 days actually. Hit it again, volume's expanding. That low is 34.81. You got under it here, you closed over it. You still closed over it here. It looks like it's going to hit it again tomorrow. If it doesn't break, then you're going to see the small caps try to turn. But the ones that just aren't breaking at all, at least not yet, are the gold stocks themselves. And if in fact gold has put in a low here, you can expect these guys to flip around and try to go back up. And that brings me actually to oil, which is the next story. And I had a question about what I think about USO, so let's tackle that while I'm here. So USO, let's see here. So it does, what we got, 33.55 at 6.5. You did 7.4, and you got underneath it, back over it, which says it's probably going to attack it again tomorrow. Let's pull it over and look at the weekly with it. Sorry, I'm looking here to see what I can find. So what it looks like to me on a weekly basis, and oil's getting dangerous to trying to break down here, but you've got a big wide price spread, high volume bar here. The top of that guy is just underneath this low. Volume's very different as it comes back. The other idea is right here, right? Guess I can't do that. Need to change my pointer. Is that you've got this bar, right, that's also supporting, and it's just underneath that price point. So gold's getting dangerously, close to trying to do a break of these. Throughout this whole trip down, there hasn't been an ABCD structure even set up on the weekly. Let's go over here on the daily. So on the daily, you don't have the break yet. You had an ABC structure from here to there, and that one's probably that one's already completed, it looks like to me, just looking at the length of them. Yeah, this is dangerous. It doesn't look like it's going to break yet. It looks to me like it's going to hold and bounce one more time. And one of the reasons I think that, if you look at the daily, right, you had some good volume expansion here. Let me get my toolbox up. You had some good volume expansion here, right, as you come down. Actually, it's on these two bars, actually. Right? Then you had decent volume expansion as you come under this low, right? That was here. And then you had the opposite, right? You had a spike up with some volume. Now you're coming down underneath that. You get underneath it, right? The volume's less though. That just looks to me like it's not quite ready to give it up. Probably going to bounce, get some sort of a bounce up higher, and then try to come back again. This is pretty extended, folks. That's from 39.54 down to 33. That's 6 on 39. That's a pretty large percentage. That's 15% or so. So that's would be my take there. I don't think I would, I would. The hard part is, how far do you, if you're going to try to keep going with the trend here, the short-term trend, on this case here, you've got a sideways range now. What do you use to tell you to keep going with it? Well, all you can do is use your daily, and if you get underneath this and stay under it, then you just put your stop back over it. But these trade all night long, so if you're trading this, you got overnight risk more so than you do in most things. Okay, let's look at some other questions that are here. So we have some small indications, going back to the general. We have some small indications that we may get a push, another attempted push down tomorrow. Right now I still have to defer to the trend, but the XLE, XLF, two big sectors, look like they are going to try to push a little bit lower. So let's take some more questions, and I'll come to the ones over here on the board. I've got more questions that were emailed to me. So there was two stocks I looked at before for this gentleman, Mr. Steve, and one of them was EWZ. He wrote it down. He's covered it. It was short. He was short. See, the other one was CI Cigna. So now Cigna. He thinks there's important resistance 81 to 81.50. Well, that high is 80.50. And yeah, it is. I mean, you can clearly see it here, in this area, right? The overlap between these two bars is pretty heavy resistance. If it gets over this 919 bar, right? Then it's going to try to carry all the way back up to the top of the 918 bar. But this is it. I mean, it's got to get over it, and so far it hasn't been able to. And like the market, it just keeps hanging. And the weekly would actually take you all the way back to the highs. Remember, the weekly actually has volume at the highs, even though it was a different type of volume in that you really came off. That's where the volume expanded. These kinds of stocks, you may see this thing come back down into here, and as my friend Charles Kirk would say, give you an ABCD, not an ABCD, but a head and shoulders pattern, right, back to the top. But a lot of times they just crawl all the way back up there before they finally give it up. So, if you're in this, or you're wanting to be in this, just recognize when it gets back up into this area, that may be all she wrote for now. It's just hard to believe that you get that kind of expansion on the way down and you can get over that and just keep going. That's probably not what's going to happen. You're going to get up there potentially and give it all up again. So I wouldn't, these kinds of stocks, when I see this kind of stuff, it's okay to trade them if you want, but when I see this kind of volume expansion compared to all of this, right, yeah, it can crawl back up to here, but when it gets up there, right, I would not stick around. That's really asking for trouble. Okay, another question. Let's see, EUM. Let's see what EUM looks like. So this is solar, the solar sector. Now I was looking at this earlier, right before I came on, when I saw it emailed in, and it's right at this major resistance bar, 2733. It's hanging right in there. So, this is thinly traded, pretty thin, and not only that, if I look at like the monthly, this thing's horrible. So I just find it hard to get excited about this. And this isn't solar. I thought you said solar. Oh, I'm sorry. It's your moniker that's solar. Okay, this is the emerging markets. Okay, very different. Yeah, this is struggling. It looks to me like it's going to try to come down and do some more filling in here. It's just range trading. It looks like I didn't get to the things I wanted to get to, so let me go and take these last couple of questions. So IPI for the next month, and then the other question is in reference to the USO, the refiners are getting some volume buys. TSO short term, please. Okay, so I'll try to look at that. So let's look at IPI. And yes, we talked about the crack. What do they call it? The crack spread, right? Where the refiners are getting the benefit of that, and they've been being bought by it. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that their charts are going to look good. I think we looked at them sometime back. Maybe a couple of weeks ago we were talking about them as oil was coming down. This reminds me. This is potash. This reminds me of what I just talked about with respect to Cigna. You got a big move down here, and now you're coming back up. Yeah, you can get back up here, but when it gets back up here, I wouldn't be in it. And it does look like it's going to at least try to attack this high. So if you get over this high, right, you can get the run up to here. But when that's done, I wouldn't be sticking around. Let me take the last question here. A TSO, the refiners. Yeah, these are going to look good. There's a number of them. This one, yeah, see the volume's coming in. It's over the highs. It's just trying to get back up to the swing point high. This thing still has, you know, a good amount it can run. There's others in this group. I think Win is one of them, if I remember right. No, it's not Win. What is it? There's a bunch of them. I could look them up, but I'm out of time. So, markets. Fed speak tomorrow, Thursday. It is the only thing these markets are moving on right now. If they want to talk about tapering, the markets are going to move down some. But every time this market moves down, the sellers disappear, right? The little dip buyers come in, and then it just kind of hangs. Maybe we'll get another Thursday again, and we'll get a nice big push. You know, I keep waiting on a retrace. It just never comes. If we don't get it this week, I think it's going to be hard to get it. Next 2 days is probably the ticket if it's going to happen. Folks, I appreciate you being there. You tell a friend, tell two. Come back and join me. I'm L.A. Little. This is and was your daily TA wrap. Have a great night. Take care of yourself. I'll see you next time. Good night, folks.